Hi, welcome to how to. Hi, oh, hi, welcome to how to start a podcast. First step: get this microphone. Yeah, wow. All right, here we go. Hi, my name's Danny McLaughlin, and welcome to my YouTube channel. I got a lot of really nice comments from people on the last couple songs that I posted. If you haven't checked them out, they're on my channel or also on my Instagram at Daniel McLaughlin Music. You guys seem to be pretty interested in how I got the tone for songs like You Got a Friend in Me. I thought we could cover some of the basics of recording a clean electric guitar tone like that, because there were a few things that went into it that I wouldn't mind sharing. I'd also love to share some of the things that I think about when I record, and I thought we'd break it down into 3 topics, alright? So the basics, and then the ideal clean guitar tone, then post-processing. And if you haven't seen the video that I'm referencing, here's a little snippet. Alright, so the basics. The big thing in regards to a good tone is having a good guitar, a good amp, a good cable, a pick that is substantial, and then also touch. They say tone is in the hands. That's kind of a thing that a lot of people have said over the years in regards to getting a good guitar tone. That people like Robin Ford or John Mayer can all sound the same on whatever gear they're playing because tone is in the hands. And to an extent that's true. You know, the way that they finesse an instrument is definitely within that realm. But also they've tuned their ears over time to understand what tone they want to get and what kind of sounds they're aiming for. And if you don't know how to set the tone on your amplifier, let's talk about that real quick. Obviously on a guitar amplifier we have things like volume, treble, bass, reverb maybe, but let's focus in on that EQ section because I think that causes a lot of confusion for people. If you want to go ahead and sweep the entirety of your amplifier's throw on the bass, on the treble, if you've got a mid control, if you've got a contour control, if you've got a presence control, go ahead and try that for each one and set it for the lowest and the highest the knob sits at. And at the point that you've heard the entire spectrum of the tone, set it for where you best think it should lie. A lot of things go into this sound. The room that you're in is going to have an effect on how you perceive this amplifier. Also the volume level. If it's really loud, you're going to get a lot more bass. If it's quiet, you're going to get a lot less bass. Something like an EQ pedal could be very helpful in this instance as well. Now this same thought process can be applied to your guitar, deciding what pickup is the best selection for the song. Also obviously volume and tone. Generally for a clean tone like you heard in You Got a Friend in Me, I'm going to be using either the neck or the middle pickup on my Telecaster specifically. I just find that the bridge pickup can sound a little bit too sharp or a little too thin, especially if your touch is not phenomenal. Alright, and then begs the question, how are we going to record? I personally use a universal audio aux box. Amp modelers are great these days. Also miking amps. I'm not necessarily going to get into mic selection or mic placement in this video, but do keep in mind that mic technique is important if you are going to be using microphones. The thing that I find with miking amps is the real beauty in tone comes from the developed guitar sound, which means that you probably want to have some sort of room mic, and you'd want to have a great room, a great treated room. Now that's out of the realm of possibility for a lot of us, but maybe next time try throwing a microphone up in the room and seeing how you can blend that in the post-processing stage. That's specifically why I do like the Universal Audio aux though, is because you do have access to great room sounds and great flexibility within those room sounds. For my clean sounds, I wasn't using any kind of EQ or compressor pedal as well. I actually wasn't using any pedals at all. I was going directly into the amp. And I only dialed in just a little bit of amp reverb. All the other reverb is post-processing. In cases like this, like clean tone recording, a little bit of reverb or delay is phenomenal though. A little bit of slapback, just to thicken up the tone, is great. Also, a slow, subtle tremolo can really liven up the tone, especially in a mix with other instruments. All right, so let's talk about the ideal clean tone. There's a lot of schools of thought in regards to what makes a clean tone. For me, the ideal clean tone is something that sounds like it could be applicable for jazz, country even, something that is clean, lacking in apparent overdrive of the amp or apparent breakup. But usually the clean tones that I love have a little bit of harmonic distortion in there that's very subtle, something that's just kind of thickening up the sound, maybe adding a little bit of extra sustain. Some of the other schools of thought that I've heard are that there is a little bit of crunch involved in clean tones. Definitely for a subtle kind of dirty rhythm, where you would maybe refer to that as a clean, is totally valid. But let's just say that the spectrum is large in terms of what we could potentially consider a clean tone. And nothing is against the rules, nothing is against what traditional recording techniques or traditional guitar tone warrants. A clean tone is not thin, and that's where I see a lot of clean tones fall flat a lot of the times, is when it's a bit on the thin side. This comes from playing maybe too quietly and digging into the guitar a little too much. A lot of times that thins out the guitar tone. So an interesting trick that you could try is playing with the amp just a little bit louder than what you're used to, and playing a little softer than what you're used to. Lighten up that touch a little bit. Allow the guitar to resonate in a way where it's not being necessarily overloaded by your intensity of playing, because really the guitar sings within that dynamic range. But personally, I really like the way that 1 or 2 or even 3 clean amps sound at high volume, especially when they have high headroom and they're pushing air. A tone very similar to what you would hear on something like John Mayer's Continuum album, which is quite frankly one of my favorite clean tones of all time. People love these Dumble style amplifiers like 2-Rock that specifically aim to get this high headroom tone. And when I'm thinking about getting a new amp, I'm thinking in this way to try and get a clean centric pedal platform forward amplifier like my Matchless, like my Tone King Imperial. I still currently own a Marshall JCM 800 from 1987, and that is not a good clean amp. The overdrive seeps into everything that it does. It nails that Marshall thing, but when you do want a very versatile and flexible pedal platform, but just clean amp, it falls flat. All right, and so getting into post-processing, you obviously don't want to get too aggressive with what you're doing. I'm a big fan of using presets on a lot of these mixes. I'm not a mix engineer myself, but I do feel like I'm competent. Just knowing what you can change to maintain the presets vibe, but adapting it towards what you're supposed to adapt it to, which is a guitar signal. You're armed with all the power of these presets. Okay, and let's check it out inside the DAW. We're here inside a Logic Pro. Here you can see my 5 tracks. Yes, I did record this all in one session. If we open up the mix window, we've got a lot of the plugins here. Now, I am trying to be conservative with some of the processing that I have, so a lot of these are disabled. So let's dive in. If we go into Surfer Girl, this is the tremolo that I used. Obviously, I didn't use any kind of amp tremolo or pedal tremolo. This is Soundtoys Tremolator. I just chose a preset. I adjusted it to my specifications that I wanted. Obviously, I wanted a little bit more in regards to toggling the depth. You Got a Friend in Me. Obviously, I still have Soothe. We have this Empirical Labs Distressor, which it's not set to do anything very aggressively. It's just meant to round out the sound and give it that studio sound. I actually took this from a preset as well. If you go into Joe Ciccarelli's, take it from basic electric guitar typically. I'll just again adapt it to what I need it to do. It's also very subtle. If you can see, I kind of do a little bit of a bell EQ here, mainly because you don't need a whole lot of this information with guitar. And this guitar information can sometimes be a little bit sharp, it can be a little harsh. Even in a mix like this, I'll get a little bit more aggressive and telephone down the EQ curve so that it's really, really tight. I'm also just loving this new plugin that I just got. It's Saturn. I'm really enjoying just checking out the different kinds of harmonic saturation that it's got. I really like how flexible it is, how you can do anything with it. Here, again, I'm using a preset and then just kind of adapting to what I mostly kind of see it doing. Moving on, I have a few here in regards to my acoustic guitar that I recorded. I think that might be covered in a different video though. And then the last one is the theme from the album. I just called it the theme from Songs from Quarantine. That's kind of what I was thinking about the album. We have the distressor again. I love that on electric guitars. We have Saturn, again, very subtle, very simple. Honestly, like when it's so subtle like this, we have this Studer tape. Okay, so the Galaxy Tape Echo, I actually got this on the day of recording, and I wanted to try it, and I thought it reflected well within what the song was calling for, and so I left it on there. And then just, the simple EQ. All of these are going through probably one of my favorite reverbs I've ever owned, the Capital Chambers. I usually use the preset by Al Schmidt called The One. Yeah, and I mean, who doesn't love the Capital Chambers reverb chambers, designed by Les Paul? And they're under the parking lot, if you've ever been to Capitol Records. Okay, and then the mastering chain, it's the same thing for all of them. Massive passive mastering channel. I love, love, love the Wolf compressor, and I'm using the Punch and Crunch preset. I typically go between the two bus glue parallel, Punch and Crunch just for my mastering chain, and then Ozone, obviously. Which is very difficult to bring up because it's very processor heavy. The three, though, again, I'm not a mixing engineer. I'm not a mastering engineer by any means, but I'm trying to use my ears to get sounds that I think sound okay. There's a lot of revision that goes into something like this. I took these out into the car and listened to them. I listened to them over computer speakers. I listened to them through my iPhone. Anything that I could listen to kind of understand. And also, I kind of kept in mind that I was going to be aiming these towards an Instagram and YouTube release where people aren't going to be listening to these on studio monitors all the time. I tried to keep that in mind when I was thinking about the bass. But overall, it wasn't a whole lot of mixed secrets that I was putting into the production of these songs. I just made sure that I got a good recording, a good take. Again, the strings were fresh. The cable was a Mogami Gold. It's not anything crazy. It's no mixed secrets or anything. It's just using my ears as much as I can. But do keep in mind the genre that you're recording in. If it's an old song, you may want to lean heavier into tape saturation. You may want to lean heavier into vinyl lo-fi effects. Depends on what you're doing. Vocal spreaders are not necessarily for vocals. You can use that on guitar. Stereo reverb, stereo delay, even stereo tremolo. Alright, hey, well, thanks for checking out the video. I hope you learned something. I'm thinking about doing a little bit more on YouTube, especially during this time of quarantine. So if you ever have any questions, comments, concerns, feel free to leave something down below. Go check out the other songs too. They're on the channel. Like, subscribe, comment, do that kind of stuff. And thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.